So it's great pleasure for me to start this amazing and wonderful presentation, which is the second part of the project, and it's called Risk and Reward. So I'm going to discuss three things, which are trade barriers and exchange rate and labor in three different countries. So as you see, this is the outline: French, India, and China. So each of these countries, I will discuss exchange rates, trade barriers, and labors. So let us start with French. French trade barriers. There are multiple trade barriers in French, which are Travis and non-Travis barriers, product certification, labeling and packaging, and special certificates. So Travis are those which are imposed on goods, and also non-Travis barriers are also those which are on non-Travis, such as documentation and whatsoever. So the other barrier also is a product certification, which means how to get certificate from the government and authorities. Labeling and packaging system also is another challenge. So special certificates means documentations that are related to establishing or making a new business. So exchange rate in French comparing to US is €1 is equivalent to $1.17 of the United States. So there are also some other barriers when it comes to labor. So according to the US and Foreign Commercial Service and US Department of State 2010, French's private sector labor force is a major asset of attracting foreign investment, despite the relatively high cost of labor and rigid labor regulation. So based on this information, labor is a major sector in French, which makes people to receive good salary because of the cost of living, which is high. However, the country has rigid labor regulations, which can cause challenges to the foreign investors, specifically those who are interested in establishing business in French. So let us go to the next country, which is India, and I will be discussing on each of these, which are exchange rate, trade barriers, and labor as well. So some of the trade barriers in India are importing license. Acquiring also importing license is one of the challenge. Entry requirements such as visa and other regulations. So testing, labeling, and certification are also another trade barriers, and also anti-dumping and countervailing measures. Anti-dumping means products that are not necessary to be imported to the country, which can be also produced in the country. So they also avoid that. And also export subsidies and domestic support. This can be also another barrier for the other companies which want to invest in in India, because government of India subsidizes locally business owners so that they motivate and support domestic productions. So let us go to the exchange rate. 1 Indian rupee is equivalent to 0.014 cent of the US dollar. And let us go to the next one, which is labor. According to the US and Foreign Commercial Service and US Department of the State 2010, foreign nationals executing projects and contractors in India are required to obtain employment visas, and all foreigners, including Indian origins, visiting India for more than 180 days, whether carrying visa students and medical and research visa and employment visa, are required to register foreign regional registration officer in Delhi and foreigners registration officer in the judicial within 14 days of their arrival. So based on this information, India's labor system is quite professional and well standard, because all the foreign nationals are supposed to have employment visas, and those who want to stay in the country more than 100 days are required to register with foreigners regional registration office in Delhi. And this is according to the US Department of State. So now let us go to the third country, which is China, and I will be discussing about exchange rate, trade barriers, and also labor. So some of the trade barriers in China are China trade barriers, China non-tariff trade barriers, anti-dumping duties, voluntary export residencies, subsidies as Chinese trade. So tariffs on goods exported or imported are very high, and also this is also another challenge which needs to be think about. And also non-trade tariffs in China also has another challenges or another barriers which about on this case, whereby you need to think about before you start doing business. So, and also China avoids anti-dumping duties, whereby products which can be locally made, but some people, some companies export from their countries to China, which makes it also less important or less necessary for the country. So subsidies as China trade barrier. This can be also another problem for companies who want to invest Chinese in China, because China government subsidizes local investors, so that business owners can be or should be local. So the exchange rate in China, $1 is equivalent to 6.47 Chinese yuan. So labor, according to the US and Foreign Commercial Services and US Department of State, US companies doing business in China remain concerned about raising cost of labor, enforcing intellectual property rights, competition with Chinese state-owned and or state-supported companies, lack of transparency, burdensome bureaucracy, and protectionism in the business licensing and approval process. So based on this, in China, there is a human resource as a country. It's one of the biggest country in the world. One of the challenges with the US companies in China, China face is raising costs. One of the challenges of which US companies in China face is raising cost of labor, which is burden for them and reduces the benefit, especially specifically those companies who have thousands of employees. So this is the end of the presentation, and these are the resources where I acquired some of those informations, and I hope this satisfies the needs of the project.